So today we are going to talk about fundraising. Um, we need to know what it is, why do we do it, what strategies do we need to employ, where can we raise the funds, and how can we manage the funds that we actually collect or that we receive from different donors. Okay, so that is the aim of this presentation. I basically hope that this is a presentation that will spark curiosity in you to be able to look at things differently, in that you should be able to think about problems that you have in your communities and see how you can address these problems and how you can raise funds to facilitate the interventions of projects to address these problems. So that is my personal motivation for preparing this presentation. So fundraising is a process of soliciting voluntary contributions, either in terms of money or resources, from different sources. It can be individuals, businesses, foundations, or government agencies. Okay, so these funds can be used by non-profit organizations or for-profit organizations. Okay, so fundraising is not only for NGOs or the ones we often call the non-profit organizations, but can also be for business entities. And usually this is associated with the giving back to the community in forms of charity or charitable causes. And they can also be political endeavors. Okay, our own example here recently, there was a resolution that the political parties that want to participate in the elections should pay $50, $50,000 for registration, and of course this is being objected. People are saying that that is a lot of money, but one of the solutions to that issue is that these political parties can run fundraising campaigns to raise that $50,000 in order to get them registered so that they can participate in the elections. Currently, because of technology, fundraising can be done using digital forms, which we often call online fundraising or digital fundraising. But of course, that does not mean that we cannot merge the offline and online methods of raising funds. Okay, so having what we call in-person events that allow face-to-face interaction between those that want donations and then those that give out these donations. Okay, so that usually can fall under what we call the traditional way of fundraising. The street type of fundraising is also falls under the traditional ways of fundraising. You can hold the placards and pass your message that you actually want funds to do a particular activity. Okay, so that's what you call street fundraising. and then of course moving. And I think we have seen this in our communities where someone moves with, it can be a letter of acknowledgement from a school they are studying in, they are moving from one shop to the other, asking for money, either to support their school fees or to support their treatment for a medical condition. And then you can also have fundraising activities at the grassroots level. The different communities can be at the church, it can be during community gatherings and things like that. So for you to start a fundraising campaign, you need to lay down very good plans. Okay, you need to have a target. Okay, how much do you want to raise? What is it going to do? And what will the impact be? So planning is very, very key. So whether you are a non-profit or a for-profit organization, you need funds. Okay, you need funds to support your operations such that you can actually meet the mission of the organization. Okay, it can be that you want to build a library in your community school. It can be that there is no maternity ward in the health facility nearby. It can be that there is a touching life story that you have encountered, and you need that situation worked upon. So you have that personal drive to have an impact. Okay, so you have a personal connection to make sure that things can be improved, but you don't have the funds, so you can do a fundraising campaign. But also, people who give donations of funds to run campaigns that have impact, long-lasting impact, they feel good about the contribution they are making in ensuring that the community or the world is actually a good or a better place. Okay, so that is also very key. It gives you a feel good what factor. Okay, again, fundraising campaigns can take different forms. Okay, like we said, it can be you can give in kind. Okay, or it may involve you in an event, for example, running. Okay, running for a charitable event. I think we had one run for a charitable event in Juba recently, the one by EcoBank. Okay, EcoBank had a charitable run when they are making 10 years in South Sudan. So what happens in such an event that people run? Of course, running is good for people's health, but also for them to participate in this run, they really needed to buy the kits. Okay, the kits for running, the jersey and the other accessories. Okay, so people set targets. Say, for me, I want to participate in this run and I need to finish the run. Okay, so when they participate in these events, they actually feel good, and there is that personal fulfillment that you get. Okay, so you challenge yourself to in some of these charitable events. Okay. So still the emphasis is that regardless of the nature of organization that you have, you can look for funds in different ways. Okay, whether it is a religious institution, it can be a church, it can be an issue to do with access to healthcare in your community, access to food, It can be a political campaign. It can be a charitable campaign or a charitable organization looking for donations, either for disaster relief, access to human rights. Just 1 minute. All right. So I'm actually back. So you, for whatever reason that you have, if you believe in it, you should be able to raise resources for charitable causes. Okay. It doesn't need you to actually have an organization per se. Okay, this is a misconception that I need to rule out. That for you to run a fundraising campaign, you do not necessarily need to have, you don't necessarily need to have an organization registered. Okay, in South Sudan here, I've seen individuals look for money for treatment. Okay, on Facebook, for example. So those are examples of fundraising campaigns that you don't really need to have an organization for you to look for money from people. Okay. I've not seen a lot, especially on our social media platforms in the context of South Sudan, about looking for funds locally for let us say for school fees. Okay, you have someone who is in their last semester at campus, they don't have money, and the money that they are being requested for is not actually a lot. So they are basically looking for people who can give them that money, but they can't find. Okay, so those small causes which are very impactful are actually very important to make sure that we actually participate in them. They don't actually require a lot of money, but they're extremely very impactful. So you working in an organization, you should be able to look for funds. Okay, in one way or the other, you participate in campaigns to look for resources. So you need to get the skills to do that. But if you don't have those skills, then it is also okay to hire people who have this expertise in raising funds. Okay, so just 1 minute. So you can look for professional people to do it for you, or you can look for organizations that can actually do the fundraising for your charitable causes. So we have a number of organizations or firms that fundraising on your behalf, and then you give them a percentage of the donations that you receive. Okay, so a percentage based fee that you actually give them. Or you can look for people who are certified in fundraising. Okay, these can be grant professionals who are certified, or they can be called certified fundraising executives who have training and certifications in fundraising. So where do you look for when looking for funds? Okay, it's very important for you to know the nature of the organizations from which you're seeking the funds from. Okay, and which areas do they even fund? Okay, so that is very important. So that's why we are talking about the different types of fundraising. So we have what you call endowment funds or endowments. This is where you have large sums of money being invested in an income generating activity, but the profit that comes from that activity or that business or that venture is given to a charitable organization. Okay, that is what we call endowment funds. So you have a large amount of money that is invested, let us say it is used to build business complexes, okay, that are rented out. The amount of profits raised from these from the rented out complexes can be given out to any charitable organization that fits the criteria. Okay, so that is what we call endowments. And then grants. They can come from governments or what you call private foundations. For example, the Melinda and Gates Foundation is a private foundation. You can also have government grants. So with grants and those grants, whether from government, whether from private foundations, these grants, you compete for them. You write, they give out what we call for proposals, and then you write your proposals, and then those proposals will be evaluated, and those that win will receive the money, which we are calling the grants. Okay, so you need to know what grants are available in your field. If the field is in higher education, is it in primary or secondary education, is it in health, is it in nutrition, where? So you need to look at the inclusion criteria for the different grants. Okay, you don't just apply for these grants. You need to know what the inclusion criteria or the evaluation criteria for the grants. And then if you want to build, let us say, a school library in your community, a school where there is no library, building a library is an investment. You can call it a capital investment. You need it. The library itself is capital. Okay. So when you run campaigns to build, let us say, infrastructure, it can be a hospital, it can be a library, it can be a school. These ones are what we call capital campaigns. The way you run it is also different from other campaigns or fundraising. And then we have what we call corporate giving. Still, organizations like, for example, MTN or Zain can have grants, and then you compete for them, and if you win, they give you the money. And then you also have what you call matching gift programs or volunteer grants. With the matching gift programs, these are campaigns or programs by organizations to make sure that their employees donate to the causes that interest them. So if you work with the Restore Initiative and then you donate towards menstrual health campaigns that create awareness about menstruation hygiene and also giving out sanitary pads. So you give there your $1,000, okay, and then the managers of the campaign or the implementers of the campaign give you a document that shows that you donated to them 1,000. You bring that acknowledgement form to Restore Initiative, and then we look at it and say, yes, you have indeed given them 1,000, and we are going to give that same organization 1,000 also. So the organization will receive 2,000. One is from the employee, and then the other 1,000 comes from the organization. That's what we call matching gift programs. Or Restore Initiative can decide to give 2,000. Okay, for every 1,000 you give, Restore Initiative gives 2,000. Okay, those are very important campaigns to instill the culture of giving to communities, such that we have the impact doubling or tripling. And then you can have special events. They can be dinners, they can be concerts, they can be walkathons. Okay, in Uganda there is a person called John Walker. He is nicknamed as Joe Walker. Joe Walker. That is his nickname. What he usually does every year, he moves on foot for, this year he moved from Kampala to Fort Portal, okay, on foot. The last year he moved from Kampala to Mbarara on foot. That is Joe Walker. If you put that name there, Joe Walker, you will see that. Why does he move? Why does he move on foot? He moves on foot to raise awareness on road safety. Okay. So you have a number of corporate companies joining him for this effort. Okay. So that is a walkathons. Also, when these companies or this corporation come in to join him in this campaign of walking to raise awareness, the money that is collected is given to charitable causes. Okay. So the campaign itself is to increase the visibility of the people, such that people increase awareness about the problem, such that this problem can actually be addressed. You can also make products that you can sell. Okay, you can make products that you can sell at a cost that gives you back the cost of production, but again have an extra amount that you can devote to other impactful charitable causes. Okay, so you don't necessarily always have to look for money all the time, but you can also do something in exchange, such that when the donors come, they can give you money. They can be gifts in the form of crafts, for example. Okay, man-made, man-made clothes, those that are thrown with the hands, crafts, and things like that. You can run these campaigns online, and this is one of the biggest sessions that we can talk about. You can use social media, you can use email, you can use what you call newsletters, and in order to raise awareness about the charitable cause, but also again to collect donations. Okay, we also have a number of crowdfunding platforms where you can register your charitable cause. Okay, where you can say that we are running an online training program to help people advance their skills in ABCD. Can you donate? Okay, something like that. So you need to have a number of skills, and one of those skills is the storytelling. Okay, you need to be able to tell a story about what you do. Okay, that's very, very important. You need to be authentic. You need to be very brief. Okay, and you need to include what you call a call to action. Okay, those are very important aspects. Make it as easy as possible for people to be able to donate if they want to donate. So that is online fundraising. It is a very big topic that we cannot really exhaust in this presentation. So it is one of the strategies that you can really employ. We have a number of different platforms, softwares, or programs that you can use in this. Okay, crowdfunding platforms such as Global Giving, and we also have regional platforms in Uganda and Kenya that you can actually still use for crowdfunding. Yep, they are still online platforms. So how do you succeed? Without planning, you cannot succeed. You need to plan, have objectives, goals, and a timeline for which you can achieve these things. Okay, it's very, very key. You need to have a clear strategy, a complete strategy, a complete fundraising strategy for the organization. You don't want to do things in a disorganized way. You need to be very organized. First, look for where you will get the funds from. So you need to have a list of potential donors. They can be businesses, they can be friends, they can be colleagues, they can be international donors, foundations, and others. Network, okay? Network, both online and offline. That's very important. One of the lessons that we need to take from this presentation is that fundraising is not a transaction. It is a relationship that you create with the potential donors. Okay? So networking becomes very, very key. Okay? And if you get those donors, you need to maintain that relationship. Okay? When you're making donor requests, know what the donors have been giving money for. Okay, if the donor is interested in climate change, then it may be very hard for you to bring in an issue to do with education, unless you find a way of linking the two. But otherwise, you need to know the program areas for that for that for that donor. Okay, and then also be mindful of your organization mission. The organization mission is also very important. It's the one that guides you in who do you have to contact in seeking for the resources. Okay, when you create a very good plan, you have the key, what we can call the key performance indicators. You will know that by this time this is what we should have achieved, and this and that and that. So you have a clear timeline and checklist, such that the critical things that you need to have in implementing your strategy are actually well outlined. Okay, and if you're going to organize, let us say, an event, fundraising event, or whether you're going to look for sponsorships, you should have everything set properly so that you don't miss opportunities. You can use softwares to help you with the managing these campaigns. Okay, so there are a variety of software programs that you can use for fundraising activities. Looking for sponsors of events is one way in which you can raise funds. Okay, so for example, you say you're going to have a fundraising dinner at Pyramid. So you look for sponsors. It could be Inalpet, it could be ARC, it could be MTN, it could be Zain. Okay, so you tell them that if you sponsor this event, this is how much you will pay, but on that event, you will have your banner displayed on our giant screen. I mean, you have banners, but also your brand will be displayed on the red carpet, on the press banner, and things like that. That gives them visibility, so it is a give and take kind of thing. There is a benefit that you give them, but there is also those funds that they give you. So that is looking for sponsors and volunteers. Don't always forget to appreciate the donors. Often, the hand that receives is very quick, but the hand that appreciates is lazy. So take it into your program to make sure that you appreciate the donations that you have received, or the sponsorships that you have received. It is very hard to say that fundraising, the activity to do with fundraising is going to be done by one person. You're going to have multiple people that you're going to engage. They should all know why you're doing the fundraising campaigns. This should be clearly communicated to them. Fundraising is not a very quick, rewarding event. It can take months until you get sizable contributions. So people really need to be very focused. They need to be motivated to make sure that they achieve the fundraising objectives. Okay? So everyone within the organization should actually know that, and they can participate in a number of ways. Because remember, we talked about networking, which can be with friends, with colleagues, with different organization executives who can really help in raising funds. So you cannot exclude people from fundraising campaigns. And then if you want to build, for example, there was a fundraising that I can talk about to build one of the universities. Which university was that? I don't know whether it was there was a fundraising done recently to build one of the universities, and I think the president also contributed. Who can remind me of that? Who knows that fundraising? Leave the one for Juba University. There was a university that they wanted to start in, I think, the northern part of this country. Who knows?
Yes,
Yes.
I think it is. Is it a will invest something like that? I think
Yes. Yes.
in that part of our will.
Yes. Yes. And it raised a significant amount of money. It was by the community in Awil and also those who were in Juba. And it generated some good money. Another fundraising that I saw had a lot of impact. The fundraising for South Sudanese to be evacuated from Sudan to South Sudan. That campaign also raised a lot of resources. Okay, so these are examples to illustrate to you that local fundraising campaigns have actually been very successful. Okay, so you need to make sure that your fundraising campaigns are people know about them. Okay, so you need to promote them through social media, through radios, through community groups. And what I need to tell you is that communities and South Sudan in South Sudan are some of the strongest. Okay, so a community is actually tends to be more stronger than some of these corporations. Okay, so if you hunker your campaigns based on a particular community, it is very possible that you raise the sufficient resources that you need. So you don't have to neglect the community members in the villages where you want to implement that initiative, okay, or that charitable act. Money is difficult to handle. If you don't have enough financial systems that ensure accountability and transparency, people's money will get lost within your own organization. So managing money is very important. If people are going to donate online, make sure that you have secure online donation systems, and you have the necessary expertise and systems or policies to detect fraud. This money will be given to you, not in cash. It can be through the bank. You should have controls at different levels. Who authorizes what? Okay, for you to withdraw money from the bank. Who authorizes it? Who countersigns? What is it used for? Often you see the money being diverted to other activities that are not directly contributing to solving the charitable cause. Okay? So having strong financial systems is very, very important. Record keeping. If they do an audit, these organizations, these donor organizations, can subject your organization to an audit. So they audit the organization, how the money was actually used. And if you use the money in the right way, then they give you a certificate that acknowledges that you have been good in using the money. And then they can now connect you to other donors who can be able to continue to donate money to your organization. So transparency is very key. Okay, transparency is very key. Don't get money and get excited, start to misuse it. No clear accountability, no reporting to the donor, then you will have problems. Okay. Yes. Is there someone who has raised up their hand? If you have raised up your hand, please speak. Okay. Let's proceed. So managing money is very important. Get the experienced people who can manage the money, but also provide them with the necessary tools. They can be computer programs, they can be training that they really need to get in financial management. Okay, and then also know who the potential donors are. They can be like different sources that we had earlier on mentioned about. Think about, think about them. Make sure that your fundraising aligns well with the your organization's science, mission, and geographic presence. Okay, so you don't write proposals just anyhow. Make sure that you have contextual consideration of the issues around you as you make that request for donation. So sponsorships we talked about, they are very key because they bring in money, and then the sponsors benefit by increasing their visibility. You can engage with a number of different actors in your community who can be willing to support your events. You're sponsoring your fundraising events or activities. Using local media is also very key because it also gives you good coverage that you actually need. Networking is very key. It's one way in which you can use to identify sponsors. And the word tailoring proposals is coming very often, very often. Tailor your proposals to each donor, to each prospect. The meaning of that is that you cannot have the same proposal given to all donors. You cannot. And you can also not have the same sponsorship proposals to all potential sponsors. The relationships are very important. The key word here is that you need to network deliberately or networking with intention. You have to be very intentional about your networking. No one will give you money out of the blue if they don't really know you. That's why networking is very important. Appreciate people. Okay? Appreciate people. And appreciating them means a lot. It can be an email. It can be a letter that you really write to them. It can be a Skype call. How do you make a Skype call to a donor? How do you write a report to a donor? These are all different competencies that you really need to gain if you're interested in fundraising activities. Okay, so it means you need to be very good at communication, that is verbal. You need to be very good at digital communication, writing emails, writing reports, having those either Skype conversations or Zoom conversations with the potential donor or a donor who has given you. So those are all different skills that you really need to master. Donors are also interested in visibility. No one gives, there are people who give you anonymously. I've ever worked with an organization that had an anonymous donor. that donor did not want their name to be mentioned anywhere, within the organizational activities. So even when that time for recognizing all the donors, you don't mention the name of that donor. Those are the ones we call anonymous donors. But most donors will need, they want to be seen that they have contributed towards an important cause. So that means that it's okay to put your donor on your website. Okay, it's okay to have them to have either their logo on your reports and things like that. So visibility is very key, and you can attain visibility through using your social media platforms, using your website, the t-shirts that we print out, the branding in the offices. Another area that can bring visibility are the ones we call social media influencers. This is a growing field, and I think currently in South Sudan we are not having a lot of influencers, social media influencers. These are often people who have a large following. Okay, and I think in our context, people like Lual Deng, I think he has more than 1 million followers on social media. If you count all the social media platforms, I think he has over 2 million followers. So if you have a charitable event and then you invite Lual Deng to amplify that message, then you're going to have a lot of people getting interested, and you might have to receive a positive outcome from it. Okay, so use your digital platforms very well. Employ social media influencers. Have what you call a call to action. Okay, what do you want the people who have seen your campaign to do? Okay, you cannot have a billboard that says donate, but you have not given the instruction on how to donate. Okay, so have a clear call to action. Use the proper hashtags. Okay, girl child education. Education can't wait. It's one of the biggest hashtags that we have in education. The moment you type hashtag education can't wait, you will see a number of things. It has been used to raise a lot of funds. And I think that is the campaign that also included Rihanna. Okay, Rihanna, I think, was part of that campaign, if I'm not mistaken. So it raised a lot of money to fund education in developing countries. Acknowledge people who have given you their resources. It can be by writing a thank you email. How do you write a thank you email, for example, to a donor? It can be a message from the beneficiaries. Okay, it can be a message that you share with the donors from the beneficiaries to basically say that this is what your money has done. It's very, very key. Transparency is very important. So make sure that you are very deliberate in putting down the ways in which the money will be used. Otherwise, if you don't use resources very well and for which they are intended for, if they give you money and then you marry the second wife instead of using the money for the reason for why it was given to you, then I think even God will not be very happy. Evaluate the fundraising campaign. So that means that you need to have an M&E strategy for evaluating your activities. So you can use a number of metrics, what you can call indicators. And these requires that you really have all the financial information well kept. Okay? What you get, what you use should be very clear. The donations can be pledges, they can be in kind, they can be ticket sales, sponsorships, and the rest. Make sure that you have a clear documentation of this information, because it is what you will use to evaluate your activities. If it is an event, then attendance is very important. The number of people who have attended the event, what is their feedback, how much are they going to give you? So you need to have the forms ready for them to register and give you their details, and then perhaps you can make follow-up calls. You may also want to measure how your promotional efforts have fared. Okay, how many people received the flyers? How many adverts have been running? How many emails did you send out? How many press releases did you make? Which new media channels were available at the event? Those are all very important in your M&E. Okay, for those who have participated in the event, you want to really hear from them. What are they saying about the event and the charitable cause that you are involved in? It helps you in identifying your strengths and weaknesses, and you can use that to improve in future. So before you manage any event, fundraising event, most of the fundraising events happen here in Dubai. Often Pyramid, often Freedom Hall, or other places. But still, for that event to be extremely successful, a lot of planning has to take place. Otherwise, you will have a disorganized event. Okay, so make sure that you plan very well. Okay, you make sure that you contact the sponsors, have meetings with them, plan the event extremely very well. You can have an experienced event planner. Okay, use that event to gather feedback, testimonies, take good photos, involve the press. Okay, these are very important. You can use them in future events. Okay, so for it to be very successful, you need to know what you want. Okay, and focus. That requires commitment, motivation, leadership, passion. If you don't have those things, you will not succeed. Persistence is very key. Okay, but also other human skills are very important. Human skills, networking, what we often call social skills or people skills, very important for you to succeed. Remember, fundraising is not a one transaction that you're going to have. It's a relationship that you establish. Okay, so that means I need to be very good at communication so that you can engage with the donors very well. Very good at project implementation and reporting, so that you have a program that is well implemented. If you have a program that is well implemented, it means you are going to have impact. And that means that the money is actually achieving the goal for which. Okay? You can recruit volunteers, okay, who can really help you if you don't have the necessary skills to do these things. Develop a strategy as an organization. Make sure it is very inclusive. People are involved in it, and then you execute it. That means a strategy will guide you on what to achieve. What resources do you need to have, and how are you going to evaluate the activities of the fundraising campaign? You can put a team together. You can have a steering committee. That's very important. It's like that you have activities well coordinated and streamlined. Given that organizations will have different departments and sections, it is very important that you have an established team with different roles and responsibilities and clear communication channels. Very important. Fundraising can be challenging, okay? If there is lack of commitment from other stakeholders, if you're going to depend on only one source, it's going to be problematic. You may want to write proposals to more than one potential donor, okay? And then engaging donors is not a passive activity. If you know that you're a lazy person, please get someone who will really do this work for you. Okay, get someone who will do this work for you. Donors will need reports. It can be quarterly reports, can be monthly report. Okay, so if you don't have the time to really do these things, it can be very detrimental. Okay, because the donors need that engagement, constant engagement. Don't narrow your scope, look beyond the borders. Okay, look beyond the borders, look for international fundraising opportunities. Networking has been a constant in our discussion. So what do you really need to do? There are 4 steps that we have here, and we'll go through them. Identification is where you do some digging around. You collect information, whether from the internet, whether offline, through friends and others, to see who are the people who can donate to you. So you do some research. Okay? So with that research, you get what we call prospects, or prospective donors. The list of people, of the organizations, or individuals, or businesses that you can be able to contact. Those are the prospects. Solicitation is now your act of asking for this donor gift. Okay? So you need to have that list of the donors that fall into your, it can be semantic area or area of interest. Different donors will say that they donate to causes that fall under health. Okay, and then others will say we donate to causes that fall under climate change. Okay, so you really need to have to have that distinction. So you need to make that list, and then the next step is cultivation, building a relationship with them. This takes time. How can you build relationships? Okay, you can network or build relationships from workshops by actively asking for a meeting. Okay, so I have an organization A, it does this. I would like to talk to you about it. Okay, then you arrange for that meeting. It can be a face-to-face meeting, it can be an offline meeting. So you interact, and then you establish that relationship. Okay, and then the next step is now you ask for the actual donor gifts. Okay, so how do you write a request for a donation? That's another skill that you need to know. Okay, how do you write to solicit for a donation? So that is the next step. You solicit for the donation. That is solicitation. Okay, this can usually be followed with meetings. Okay, so you're asking, you could be asking for 50,000 US dollars in your letter or in your proposal, and then you can have a series of meetings and then you can add just a proposal here and there until it is finally approved. Okay. Now the last step is stewardship. You want to make sure that the relationship that you have cultivated does not end at you receiving the money in the bank. Okay, you need to make sure that you provide progressive updates to the donor. A number of activities can be involved here, even after closure of the project. It could be very important to keep in touch. So from there, if you are an organization, make sure that your strategy in place, and your strategy will look like these are the things that you need to put into your strategic fundraising plan. Introduction, which basically talks about what you are and what you're doing. What targets do you need to achieve? How you will implement the different strategies. What do you want to achieve? That is the goals. And then the action plans. What are the things that you will do? Okay, and then the implementation. Monitor and evaluate if things are moving in the right direction. Okay? Think about the following. Think about the reason for which you are looking the funds for. Make a clear case for support. Okay? Make a clear case for support. That has to be very clear. It is what catches that this is, I need support for A, B, C, D. Okay? And then project identification. What are you going to do about the issue that you have raised? So in the case, make the case for support. That part is basically almost like what we call problem statement. Where the problem is occurring, to what extent it is occurring, what needs to be done to bring the problem, to address the problem. Okay, so what project have you identified that will actually address the problem? And then what resources will actually be needed? What resources do you actually have at the moment before you look for other resources? And then look for people who are prospects, those who are likely to give you. And then you can make what you call a gift table. Where if your target is 100,000, that's your target. If one person gives you that amount, then you have sorted the problem. Okay? And then if two people will give you that amount, then it means from each person you need at least 50,000 for you to get that 100. But you can also gauge or have estimations of number of prospects, where you say that I'm going to write to organization A and B. The organization A and B, usually they give around 20,000 US dollars every year. So if they give me, I will need at least 5 organizations like those for me to be able to raise that 100,000 US dollars. That's what we call a gift table. So different techniques can be used in fundraising. We talked about events, we talked about selling products, we talked about sponsorship, we talked about community fundraising events. We also talked about online fundraising, telephone fundraising, direct mails, a number of strategies that you can really use. The last slide is a take-home message for all of us, which is that, you see, often when we talk about fundraising, it is very easy that we think about people who already have a lot of money. that is not usually the case. It can be even you. Actually, the people who give us money, the money that we work for in the different NGOs, come from people that are actually like us. Don't think that the money that, if, for example, you're working with an international NGO, that money is coming from the richest people in the world. No. That money comes from people who also work like you. So what is very important is that we need to cultivate a culture of giving back to the community, such that we are not reliant on external support for everything that we really do. And to cultivate that culture, we need to involve our children in activities of giving. Okay. Some of the ways in which you can actually give is not necessarily through giving money. It can be through volunteering. In our slides, we have seen the word volunteer a lot. But how many of you have volunteered in your different communities? It is in this country where you see a doctor sitting home because they don't have an NGO job to work for. Each day can go to any nearby primary health care center and then they volunteer. And it is worse with people who have made some money through these NGOs. Someone has been earning $3,000 every month, and then the contract ends. When the contract ends, they come home and sit. They cannot volunteer. Okay, so we need to cultivate the culture of volunteering such that we can really have a generation in the future that gets interested in other people's problems. The emphasis here is, all of you, I want to challenge you. What other thing have you done that is beyond benefiting you and your family? What other thing have you done that benefits other people in the community and not you and your family? If you work in the hospital and you're being paid, that money is for you and your family. What else have you done? Or what else are you engaged in that does not benefit you but benefits the community? Please don't include the work that you do that you're actually paid for. Okay, so check yourselves. So it is very important that even us, we grow that culture of giving back to the community. That it is the only way in which we can actually improve our communities. If we only work because we are paid, then we will not solve some of the problems that we have. So that marks the end of this presentation. It's time for me to welcome questions.